let's see, Daddy was born in 35, he was 20. So it would have been somewhere around 1955-ish, I think. That's close, 54, 55. At the time of Daddy's death, they had been married 49 years. Daddy's been dead 20 years. So they would have been married today 69 years. So a long time. A picture of them early in life, in their early married life. This is an interesting little picture here. I made this recently. You'll notice, this is my favorite part, inmate receiving. It's the county jail today, and where I was born in 1959. So today, the jail is what was in 1959 the hospital in Jackson County. Yeah, you don't think that's funny, do you? Huh. I thought it was actually funny. Huh. There I am, a bouncy little baby boy, born in November of 1959 to James Paul and Tootie Anderson. My two sisters, Susan here, oldest sister here, Susan, today works in the University of South Carolina school system. Our office is over in Columbia, South Carolina. She's very successful in her field, super energetic still to this day. I couldn't hold a candle to her, quite honestly. She has always been and remains today kind of the leader of the kids, if you know what I mean, the oldest. My little sister here, she lives in Cookville, works for American Way Real Estate, sells real estate, does well there. Both have families, husbands. Susan has a son, Andy, who lives in Naples, Florida, and is a physician. Gina has 3 children. Her oldest, Madeline, is a special education teacher's assistant in Allgood. Max is a nurse up in Johnson City area. And JP, her baby, is currently playing baseball at Freed Hardeman and is a youth intern, ironically enough, down the road at the Chapel Hill Church of Christ right now. So we're proud of them. This lovely lady, my mother, her most important lot in life was to serve her family. And, I could say a lot of good things about her, I think. She worked outside the home for a period of time. She worked for the Twin Lakes Telephone Company. She worked for the hospital. She worked in the funeral home with my dad. She worked at a nursing home, all in clerical type work. But honestly, she kept our family running, truthfully. She cooked and she cleaned. She ironed more clothes than I could never imagine how many clothes she's ironed. She was Mrs. Cleaver, so to speak, to me. And she helped my dad greatly. And she never wanted to be in the limelight, but was always the servant. And truth be known, I don't know that I would want her to hear me say this, but this is the backbone of our family, really. She did a lot of great stuff and was never publicly really recognized. She just served. So that's a lot to be proud of, I think, to be able to say about your mother. And so we're blessed that she's still alive. She's 86. She gave me COVID 3 weeks ago. God bless her. Yeah, she did. And it's all good. She recovered. She feared, being really sick if she ever contacted it. So she was blessed to have made it through the first 2.5 years and not have it. And just a few weeks ago, she found it. So this was our home when I was a little boy. Home was built in the early 1920s. So it's approaching 100 years old today. It looks like this after 5 remodels. This is right on the bypass in Gainesboro, Tennessee, today. Did I say this house has been remodeled 5 times? You know, it's hard to believe. I don't know why the front porch was ever taken off, because that was one of my favorite parts of the house. There's a swing that always stayed right here that was really a favorite spot. When I was a child, this house was on a dead-end street that allowed for a lot of really safe, fun playing for little boys. And there was a group of us that went out early and we came home late. And we were dirty as could be, and we had a blast. You know, we were all boys. We'll tell you more about this place in a second. You see it's in really disrepair at this point. This building here was my dad's funeral home for many years, and it was built brand new when I was in about the 6th grade. This building that you see behind over here, this is a bank that's beyond, a bank building that's beyond, and it dwarfs this building. But when I was in the 7th grade, we moved into this building out of original home place here. We moved into this building that housed my dad's funeral home. My dad was he did a lot of different things in my lifetime. When I was a really little boy, he was a merchant, owned a dry goods store. He went to embalming school, became a mortician and a funeral director. When I was just a little bit older, he bought into a partnership, was a mortician and a funeral director. Later, bought the business completely out and built this building. So when I was in the 7th grade, we actually moved into this building. And, you know, that's an interesting thing to grow up inside a funeral home. You know, there's some stories to be had. I'll tell you one on me quickly as we kind of blow through this. My daddy, right here, he loved practical jokes. And my oldest sister and her boyfriend also enjoyed practical jokes. And I was in the 7th grade. Sir Cecil Creek was a big thing. Y'all remember Sir Cecil Creek? Saturday night at 10:30 or 11 o'clock. Horror movies. You guys don't remember them because you weren't born then. But Sir Cecil Creek was a really ugly guy with really jagged teeth, you know, and a funny-looking eye. And it was horror movies in a funeral home, Saturday night at 10:30. 2 of my little buddies were there, and they went home. And my sister thought it would be funny if they dressed my dad up and sent him down to scare the 3 of us, not knowing that the other 2 were gone. So, living in a small town and being always in and around the public, I didn't think anything about it when there was a knock at the door. 20 minutes to 11, I run to the door, I stand on my tiptoes. I don't think you can see it, but the front door here at that time was just a door. The glass cage was not around it. There was a piece of glass about this big that I could step up and look at like this. And when I looked out the door, there was this man there. And he looked kind of funny. His eyebrows were kind of grown together. And his jacket was like a trench coat. And it was pulled up around his face. And it was, you know, it was wintertime, so I didn't think a lot about it. And the thought that ran through my mind was that somebody from the Army wanting to see Daddy. Why I thought that? Not a clue. So I just opened the door up. Daddy steps toward me like this. I can't tell who Daddy is. I'm telling you, because they had really painted him some Elvis sideburns, put a big unibrow on him. He don't look nothing like Daddy. I start backing up. So you know what little boys do. They would usually take the flight, run like crazy and scream. Not me. I'm backing up going something like, can't get nothing out. Man, my knees buckle. About the time my knees buckle, Daddy sees, oh, Paul, he's headed for the floor. Son, it's me. Too late. I am out of here. Boom, to the floor. That's what you call scaring the stew out of a little boy. I made him sleep with me for the next 2 or 3 nights. Isn't that terrible? It should do your child that way. Anyway, he was a good man. He did a lot of things. He was a preacher. He served as an elder in the church for years. He baptized this young man right here. He became like a big brother to me. And he also became a preacher. He preached at rural congregation of the church in Jackson County. My home county had 38 congregations of the church when I left home in 1977. So as you would guess, it was a very rural area, a lot of farms, a lot of farmers. And so as a result, a lot of different rural congregations of the church. But he preached at some of the larger ones and was doing great. Some things happened in his life that were really so unfortunate. Caught up in sin, couldn't deal with it, and took his life. And the day that it happened, I was in your home. I've never forgotten it. So it was great loss for me, great loss for my wife because she loved him too, and our family. And so anyway, we miss him. Whoops. I messed up, Cole. Can you get me back to that spot again? I want to say a special thank you to Nicole. She, of course, our daughter is here with us. And were it not for Nicole, I would not be able to do this and share this with you by pictures because I don't know really how to do it. And so she helped me through it. This congregation of the church is one of the first congregations of the church that I remember. The McCoynesville congregation, which today is still a vibrant little country church. Still have family that worships here. Daddy preached here when I was a little fella. And my Uncle Clay and Aunt Videy were there, my granddaddy's brother. And I used to crawl up in his lap and sleep through church as a little boy. One of the things that I remember about this particular congregation of the church was that I was disciplined many times here by my mother. And the story has it that at one point I was being taken out on a Sunday morning, and I grabbed the casing at the top of the door, and I was screaming, "Mama, please don't beat me. Please don't beat me, Mama," really loud. So you could guess as how the training that I received that day. This is the congregation of the church where I became a Christian. My home congregation there in Gainesboro. My dad served here as an elder for years, and I became a Christian here on January the 17th, 1972, at the age of 12. My elementary school here. All through life, you remember people that you just, for whatever reason, you just love. One here that come to mind as I was thinking my way through this tonight was my second grade teacher, and her name was Maggie Leslie. She was an older woman who never married. But for whatever reason, Miss Maggie was just somebody that, to me, was super special. And so when I was in high school, Miss Maggie came down with cancer. She got really sick, and of course she died later. But I remember that she was really the first person that I ever had an opportunity to visit in the hospital when she was really sick, to actually have an opportunity to talk to her, to say, "I love you. You have been special to me, and I appreciate you." And for whatever reason, she was just somebody that I grew to really love at a very young age. My junior high years spent here, 5th through 8th grade. I was introduced to sports here, and I really loved to play. Not soccer. Didn't know anything about soccer in America or hockey at that time. It was strictly baseball, football, and basketball. And I played year-round for the next several years. broke my first arm here, running a punt back the day before first game of the year. Track, broke it in two. That was fun. High school sports. Man, I love sports way more than I love studying. I went to school to because I had to. My parents made me. I'm part of a family who were pretty academically inclined. My dad and mother both were honor students. My sister was valedictorian. My little sister was an honor student. And I was a student. I went to school. My mother just reminded me just in the last few days what a smart little mouth I had when she said, "You need to buckle down and get serious about them books." My smart aleck little 8th grade mouth said something to the effect of, "Well, you just might as well get used to it because it's not going to happen." Can you believe that I actually said that and got by? I'm still here to tell it at 62. It was not something that I'm proud of. Of all the things that my mother tried to teach me, and of all the things that today I regret most, is I did not listen to her when it came to academic stuff. I much preferred doing other things to studying. Not a good trait. But I loved sports a lot. This guy right here became special to me. He was our high school basketball coach my senior year. We had played and had some success in other years under a different coach. This guy in 1964 or 5 played on a high school state tournament team against Kittrell, I believe. And he also came, his name's Ray Dennis, came to MTSU and played basketball. But I loved him as a coach. He was somebody that man, he was a player's coach and somebody that you really could connect with. We played really hard for him. This night is the finals of the district tournament. We had played a team that was our neighboring county, Clay County, in a small single-A high school. We'd played them twice previously the year and won both games by a single point during the regular season. This night, they beat us by a single point. And so it was a pretty tough pill to take to lose to them that night. So I was not a great loser at 16, 17 years old. So high school graduation, it was 1977. Ready to move on. Wanted to come to school at Lipscomb. Had attended multiple baseball camps of Ken Dugan's under the Dugan years, and man, he's a great coach, tough coach, but somebody that I admired, and for whatever reason, from a very young age, I wanted to come to Lipscomb to play baseball. And we all have our limitations. And when I came to Lipscomb to play baseball, they were loaded. They had just won the NAIA World Series the year before. One of my high school teammates was on their pitching staff, which really became the only reason that I ultimately tried out, because I realized when I got there how very small a chance I had of making the team. They still, at that time, had 5 NAIA All-Americans. So to say that they were pretty good is a fairly big understatement. Infield, which I'd always played, I didn't even think about trying out for. I just came, went out for the outfield, just in hopes that I might get lucky and make the team. Didn't happen. So there was 33 of us that tried out. Tryout lasted 2.5 or 3 weeks, and I was cut in the final 3. So here I was, 17. My identity had always been in sports. It's really kind of all I'd ever loved to do was play and compete. And so it came to a crashing halt. And so I learned to do other things and learned to pursue other interests. one of the things that I loved so much about Lipscomb from the very beginning was chapel singing. You guys remember when you came from your small towns and went to school at Lipscomb and sat down in chapel the first time? Man, I thought I was in heaven because the singing was so beautiful. I couldn't believe it. So, I never had considered singing. Didn't know anything about chorus or anything. And I took a song leading class because I wanted to learn how to lead singing better. And the chorus director taught us singing. His name was Dr. Larry Griffith. And he encouraged me to try out for chorale because he was the director of chorale. And of course, this is not a cappella. A cappella was the big group where all the music, really good music people, as far as like music majors and stuff, went. This was chorale. But to me, it was a really good course. I had the privilege here of running into someone that you'll recognize. There's two of us right there. You recognize that young lady? Her name is Debbie Gill, or Debbie Miller. So we stood together in this picture in about 1980, maybe 79 or 80, and had sang together at that time for like 3 years. And so I've known Debbie for a long time. But this was a fun part of my life that allowed me to see some parts of the country that I'd never seen. Every spring we would go to different places on tour and sing for different churches. You know, I keep bouncing that one because my beautiful wife, did you notice that? My daughter last night, we were kind of cutting up. I said, "Babe alert." She thought that was really funny. And so anyway, my name, since I started with A, I always got to stay with the preachers. You know, so whatever city we went in, the one that I really remember most was New Orleans. Everybody wants to go see the French Quarter. I saw it the next day. And I really wasn't all that up on it because I didn't know much about it. You know, being from Gainesboro, I knew very little about New Orleans. And I got stuck in the preacher's house. Preachers don't do much after 9 o'clock, I'm telling you. Huh, Harvey? What about it? Is that right? Yeah. I was in bed by 9:30. Anyway, my wife, highlight of my Lipscomb years. This is where it really gets funny, because I was in Tall Phi. Some of you know Tall Phi, and some of you might not. Richard Thompson was in Tall Phi. I had asked Phyllis to go out at encouragement of a mutual friend, and things didn't go well. First time, you know, sometimes things go well and sometimes they just don't. This didn't go well. I think she was still really connected at the hip to a previous boyfriend, and she really just did not. It was one of those things that she just wasn't really all that pumped about going out with me. Okay, I can take it. A few years passes, like a year and 4 or 5 months. We come back to Nashville to a wedding of a mutual friend, and we're at church on Sunday morning at Creve Hall, and I ran into her. She's by herself because she's come to the same wedding. I'm with a buddy or two, Toby, I think, Billy Kegley. And so we ultimately end up sitting together. And after church is over, we have lunch together with Julie Whistler, by the way. Julie Whistler and Billy and myself. And after this lunch and church that morning, it just gets better. For whatever reason, a year and a half, I'm not sure what happened. But she liked me more this go-round than she did the first go-round. And after that, we started dating with consistency and did for the next year and a half. And ultimately, in September of 1982, we were married. And this is when I thought about you when I looked at this, because everybody always wanted to call me some kind of Mexican name, you know. And I never really understand it, like Pedro or whatever, because the dark hair and it standing up and the mustache. And so I thought about you for whatever reason. But Phyllis was a beautiful bride. Yeah, she was a beautiful bride. And let me back up before we start there. Phyllis was a beautiful bride. We moved her from Atlanta to Tullahoma, Tennessee, which is where Jeff Neely's from. And we lived there for 9 months. We worshiped at a congregation called Bel Air, where Brother Jim was an elder, Jeff's dad. We loved Tullahoma, except not initially. Phyllis cried initially because it was quite a contrast between Atlanta and Tullahoma, you know. But 9 months passed. There was a group of wonderful women there, a bowling league, which was a big hit, and ladies who were older that kind of took a 22-year-old young woman under their wing. And we left 9 months later, and she cried again because we were leaving. Now, I would never recommend this next step because we moved from Tullahoma to Gainesboro. And not only did we move to Gainesboro, but we moved in the house with her in-laws. We did it with a plan, we thought. The plan did not materialize. After 6 months, we knew that it wasn't going the direction we thought it was going, and we moved out in about the 9th month or so, 8th or 9th month. Yeah, and moved out to a little bitty house in the country that you would really get a kick out of. It was really a cool place. I had a wood stove that I about burnt the house down the first few days being in it, trying to learn how to manage a wood stove. You remember the winter in 1983 when it got down to like 10 below and stayed there for 2 weeks? Y'all remember that? That was right at that time when I was trying to learn how to manage a wood stove. That's kind of tricky. It was like 85 in the house, so the doors were open. It was 10 below outside, and we were in shorts and T-shirts, but the house was really warm. We didn't stay there long, thankfully, because I probably would have killed us both trying to figure that stove out. We moved back to Nashville at that time. Phyllis actually had a job first. She went to work in the office of the ERA Real Estate regional office, and over in Maryland Farms. And I went to work in like March or early April in the window business, selling windows for wholesale building products. We came to the Tusculum Church at that time in like April of 1984, and grew to love it really quickly. A lot of life happened. We stayed in McMurray Manor Apartments for almost a year. 2 years? No, I don't think so. That was in 84. In July of 1985, we moved to Nolensville. But we grew to love and appreciate Jeff and Ruth and Ken and Carla Hardison, Bobby and Vicki Weatherly, Randy and Treva, of course, but they didn't live in McMurray Manor, but just worshiped at Tusculum. So there were several of us that was right around the area, and Tusculum at that time kind of had a bump in young families from different parts of the world, which was fun. We moved to Nolensville in July of the next year. We were there for a year. This day is a great day. The morning of July 23rd, 1986. Phyllis is pregnant with our first child. This is our baby, Natalie. We learned shortly thereafter that she had a very serious heart defect, and she passed away. And so this is Natalie's grave today over at Woodlawn. And was a tough time. Cemented us in the Tusculum family because the Tusculum church rallied to our side and loved us and helped us and encouraged us through some kind of dark days. But we didn't know that they were just really kind of getting started good. Life comes in bunches at times. In 5 years and 4 months, we had, especially my wife, had some really serious deaths. She gave birth 3 times, and she lost mama, daddy, and baby in 5 years and 4 months in her 20s. And many of you who've been blessed with children realize what it's like hormonally for women at the time they give birth. Hormones are going crazy. It was a really tough time period. So for the next several years, there was some real struggles. But there was some real bright spots too. Nicole, born in 87, 3 weeks after Phyllis's mother's passing. So then Will, born in February of 91, 8 months before Phyllis's dad passed. So in the midst of struggle and loss was blessings and birth. And it was an interesting time in the Anderson household. But there was, and you'll see in a few minutes, there was lots of support and lots of help from a lot of people who loved us. I love some of these family little pictures as they get older, as your children get older. Some of your favorites. This one was when Bass Pro Shop first opened, and I just. That was after the flood when it was not before it reopened, and you were so excited about that. Oh, okay. Well, what doesn't matter. Whatever. That was a Christmas card, and it's one of my favorite places, and so I just thought it would be a fun Christmas card. 2002, my dad passes away after battling cancer for about 8 months. For the last 10 years, I really didn't know what Phyllis had experienced in the loss of her parents. And so one of my heroes passes away. He's a wonderful dad and a wonderful grandparent. All the grandkids love him. He gets down the floor and plays with them and just has a blast. And we miss him. It was 20 years, June the 8th. But there are joys in families. Our kids went off to school at Harding. It was a great experience for them. Will decides he's going to graduate. So he graduates in December on like the 15th. We have Christmas. We go to Georgia. We have a wedding on like the 28th. He does a honeymoon like in Mexico or somewhere crazy. And he has a new job that started like January the 4th. So he does all these things in like 3 weeks, and we're home still sleeping, trying to recover from it. But it was a great time and a wonderful event in our family's life. Grandbabies, how could life be any better with grandchildren? One of my favorite pictures here. That's kind of how I look when I wake up in the morning. She gets that from me. But boy, are they ever a blessing to have grandchildren. And so while we don't get to see them every week, we still enjoy the time we get to spend with them. And they're so much fun. This is kind of a little collage of people that along the way have helped me along in my journey. And there's many other pictures that would go if the screen would hold them. And so if you're not on this page, I'm sorry. But I want to share a few with you that are special to me. This young lady right here and I, in 1964, was the crown bearer and the flower girl in Jackson County High School homecoming in Jackson County. And we are lifelong friends. We were high school classmates. She is now retired. She was a nurse in Putnam County, but somebody that I love dearly. This guy right here I met as a first time. I was a junior high kid. He was a high school football player. He was at the water cooler. I called him Silvertooth. Not a good move. He was a big guy at that time, and I was just a little guy. And I was just cutting up with him. He didn't think it was all that funny. He picked me up. He didn't hurt me, but he picked me up and looked at me face to face. He became like my big brother years later. He's the guy that took his life. But he was very close. This guy right here, I met at Monroe Harding Children's Home when I first started at Lipscomb. His mother was the person there that was kind of like the dorm mama. He worked at NES, went to school to MTSU some, but he has been a dear, dear friend for 40 years now. At one time, he came to church here at Tusculum with us. Billy Kegley is his name. Yep. Of course, my dad and granddad. I got in trouble at Lipscomb one time many years ago. I know it's hard for you to believe that I would get in trouble. I took a long weekend trip with a group of people who wanted to go snow skiing, and I was an avid water skier, loved the water, never been snow skiing. I misbehaved, and I got in trouble. My dad came to be with me the day of my appearance before the Student Affairs Committee. It's kind of like the Sanhedrin, you know? At least that was my perspective of them, you know? I was kind of really dreading Carl McKelvey. My dad says to me as we're getting ready to go in, he says, "Don't misunderstand the purpose of me being here with you today." I said, "Okay." He said, "I don't agree with what you did. Whatever happens today, you're going to take the punishment like a man, and you'll walk through it and move forward. I'm here. I'm your daddy. I love you, and I'm going to stand by you. But don't think for a second I agree with your behavior." I've never forgotten that. And that's the kind of daddy he was. He didn't put up with a lot of foolishness. And I kind of have that kind of same trait as a daddy, but I loved him for that. How he stuck by me even when I did something that he didn't approve of. My granddaddy, super influential in my life. My son's named for him, and I remember him very fondly as a very simple man, an 8th grade education, a farmer, so he worked with his hands, a carpenter, a very slow to speak, quiet, gentle man, and a very content man. And there are some real qualities there that I grew really truthfully to admire. My Tusculum years have been filled with many. I'm gonna swap sides of the page here, and I'm gonna go over to here. I said there were some dark days in the life of our family, and there was. You know, being in your 20s not knowing how to react to your wife who's had all this loss. You know, our natural instincts as guys is to fix things. And I learned really early in life that there's certain things that you can't fix. So, again, Janice Hartman took my wife, and she took her kind of under her wing. And she helped her for a long time. And, I said that, those dark years, and I was so grateful that I made it through the first pass at this and didn't tear up. But I want to say, those first few years were pretty rocky. Those first 10 years or so. If you would have been taking bets, if the Andersons would have survived, it might have been a 50-50 shot. Because, a lot of young families who experience the kind of things that we experience don't make it. And it's really only because I think that we had people from this place that loved us enough to help us. And there was a lot that invested in us. Outward expressions of just basically holding us up. And she was kind of at the forefront. Enoch was right there by her side. There's another picture of me and Enoch that didn't make this page that, wow, Enoch was dark-headed too. I actually had dark hair. And I was about 180 pounds, so I was small. We're sitting on a couch and we're laughing. But they became like our parents and grandparents. And it wasn't just Enoch and Janice. It was numerous people that loved us and helped us. And then you can see here, they were part of our family at every juncture. As our children became Christians, as our children graduated from high school, as our children went off to college, as our children got married and had babies and all those things, they were engaged exactly like our families were, like our parents would have been or were. Brother Ray, Miss Vesey, instrumental people in my life through the years. I spent an hour and 10 minutes with him on the phone yesterday because I appreciate his wisdom and his counsel. These two clowns right here, man, I'm telling you, couldn't find finer friends. Over the years, especially the last 10, we've been thick. Seen a lot of stuff together, done a lot of things together, tried to make a difference in the Tusculum church together. As I wrap up tonight, I hope that one thing that you've sensed, heard, is that there's importance in family. There's importance and high value in loving people. There is special places that God designed. It's at home, where your husband and wife relationship, your children, other important relationships in your life are birthed and exist on an ongoing basis. And then there's the church. A church where there's might not be a blood relation, but there's a spiritual relation. That being in Christ makes us all one. And there's great value in that. And it's by God's design that value exists. Being one in Christ Jesus, we are connected to the very Lord who said, if it be your will, let this cup pass from me. But not my will. Thy will be done. And he went to the cross and he suffered. He suffered unlike anything that we can imagine for the church. For all those relationships that are value to us, he suffered and he died. And we're so flippant at times about him. How could we be so flippant? I said to you earlier that through those really dark, difficult years, our love for the Tusculum church was cemented. Phyllis and I will forever be part of the Tusculum family. And it took place a long time ago. You know, as I wrap up, I'm going to read several verses from 1 Corinthians. And I really today encourage folks to listen to God's design because it's important. In my conversation with Brother Ray last night, one of the thoughts that he shared was how many folks today struggle finding a place or feeling a part of the church. And what a crying shame that is. That any one of us would not feel a part of what Christ died for. Shame on us all if we allow our brothers and sisters to not feel valued. There was a woman that worshiped here years ago. She's dead and gone by years. I loved her because I watched this lady change as her life unfolded. And she chose to serve. Didn't matter what season of her life. She found a way to contribute and serve. Her name was Martha Pulley. The last few years of her life, she was homebound, later bedbound. She called people on the telephone just to try to encourage them, sent them cards, when she herself could have easily said, I'm so down in the dumps, so needed to have others minister to her. She ministered to people till her last breath. 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 12. The body is a unit. Though it is made up of many parts, and though all its parts are many, they form one body. So it is with Christ. For we were all baptized by one Spirit into one body, whether Jews or Greeks, slaves or free, and we were all given the one Spirit to drink. Now the body is not made up of one part, but of many. If the foot should say, because I am not a hand, I do not belong to the body, it would not for that reason cease to be part of the body. And if the ear should say, because I am not an eye, I do not belong to the body, it would not for that reason cease to be part of the body. If the whole body were an eye, where would the sense of hearing be? If the whole body were an ear, where would the sense of smell be? But in fact, God has arranged the parts of the body, every one of them, just as He wanted them to be. If they were all one part, where would the body be? As it is, there are many parts but one body. The eye cannot say to the hand, I don't need you. And the head cannot say to the feet, I don't need you. On the contrary, those parts of the body that seem to be weaker are indispensable. And the parts that we think are less honorable, we treat with special honor. And the parts that are unpresentable are treated with special modesty, while our presentable parts need no special treatment. But God has combined the members of the body and has given greater honor to the parts that lacked it, so that there should be no division in the body, but that all its parts should have equal concern for each other. If one part suffers, every part suffers with it. If one part is honored, every part rejoices with it. Now you are the body of Christ, and each one of you is a part of it. If we could only move ourselves out of the way, recognize our talents and our gifts, and be willing to just serve. Just serve. Put a smile on our face and joy in our heart. Just serve the Lord that gave so much. As we conclude tonight, there's one little section of Scripture in Romans that stuck out. And it's kind of like a little prayer that I want to wrap up with. It says, may the God of hope fill you with joy and peace as you trust in Him, so that you may overflow with hope. By the power of the Holy Spirit. So much to be grateful for. I have so much to be thankful for. My life, 62 years old. And as I think back through the years, I've been so blessed in so many ways. I have been touched by many wonderful people. Been influenced by. I'm so thankful and so very fortunate that I was the son of parents who were not perfect, but who instilled in me a sense of right and wrong. And they helped to develop in me a conscience that could be violated, and has been many times. So I would say to you, if you have an opportunity to affect a young person, help them by teaching them right and wrong and helping to develop in them a conscience that can be violated. That will keep them out of trouble in any regard. It will keep them, in a sense, pure, and it will help them to not have to fight the guilt that is associated with ongoing sin. And you will be a blessing to those that you have an opportunity to influence. I love the Tusculum Church. It is an absolute privilege to serve as a shepherd here. I pray God's blessings on the future of her. It has been a challenging few years. I'm grateful that you're here with us to continue our journey together.